The escalating conflict between the United States and Iran has now entered one of the most consequential and volatile phases in recent memory. In a high-stakes interview, Republican Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio, a senior member of the House Armed Services Committee and former chair of the Intelligence Committee, defended the administration's recent military actions against Iran, framing them not as sudden aggression but as a response to what he described as a long-building and inevitable confrontation. Turner argued that the current crisis cannot be viewed in isolation. According to him, the roots stretch back years, particularly to the era of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, commonly known as the Iran nuclear deal, negotiated during the Barack Obama administration. He emphasized that Iran's nuclear enrichment activities, missile development, and military expansion have continued over time, alongside its designation by the United States as a state sponsor of terrorism. The congressman stated that the Trump administration had previously taken decisive steps, including strikes targeting Iranian nuclear enrichment facilities, asserting that Tehran had continued enrichment efforts and military buildup despite warnings. He characterized Iran as an enduring and expanding threat, not only regionally in the Middle East but also to Europe and ultimately the U.S. homeland. The central question raised during the interview was whether there was an imminent threat that justified the timing of the most recent military action. Critics have argued that Iran has posed a continuing threat for decades, and they questioned what new intelligence triggered this specific operation. Turner responded by reframing the concept of imminence. He suggested that policymakers must consider the intersection of opportunity and threat, arguing that waiting too long could eliminate the opportunity to neutralize a threat before it matures into something far more dangerous. Drawing a comparison to North Korea, Turner suggested that failing to act before a nation develops advanced intercontinental ballistic missile capabilities can leave the United States facing a far more severe and direct threat to its homeland. In his view, the administration acted before Iran could solidify its missile, nuclear, and drone capabilities into a permanent strategic danger. He described the operation as systematic and targeted, aimed at degrading Iran's missile programs, space launch capabilities, which he indicated could translate into ICBM technology, and drone infrastructure. Turner argued that diminishing these capabilities serves not only American interests but also those of European and Middle Eastern allies. The discussion then turned to congressional oversight and the possibility of a War Powers Resolution vote. Under the War Powers Act, Congress has the authority to limit or terminate U.S. military involvement in hostilities absent formal authorization. Turner signaled that he does not support such a resolution at this time, stating that the president has described the action as limited in scope and duration. According to Turner, European and regional allies increasingly view the operation as a valid and necessary military effort. However, uncertainty remains over the timeline. The president has suggested that operations could last anywhere from 2 weeks to as long as 6 weeks. Turner acknowledged that lawmakers need detailed briefings outlining the projected duration, scope, expected impact, and potential escalation scenarios. Meanwhile, Iran's response has already intensified concerns. Tehran has launched strikes targeting Gulf neighbors, reportedly hitting energy infrastructure, including oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. These developments have rattled global markets. Stock futures have fallen sharply, and oil prices have surged amid fears of supply disruptions through key maritime routes. Turner framed Iran's retaliatory actions as consistent with what he described as its long-standing pattern of supporting proxy groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. He argued that Iranian responses often target civilian or commercial infrastructure rather than purely military assets, increasing regional instability and economic volatility. The economic implications are significant. Rising oil prices directly impact American consumers through higher gasoline costs, increased transportation expenses, and broader inflationary pressure. Prolonged military engagement could compound economic strain at a time when global markets are already fragile. Another pressing concern involves Homeland security. Following a mass shooting in Texas over the weekend, preliminary reporting has suggested that the suspect may have been influenced by developments in the Middle East. While investigations are ongoing, the possibility of domestic or foreign-inspired retaliatory attacks has intensified scrutiny on federal counterterrorism readiness. Turner emphasized the importance of fully funding Homeland security operations. He warned that partisan gridlock in Congress has delayed key appropriations, including resources for the Department of Homeland Security and counterterrorism efforts. He urged lawmakers to move beyond partisan disputes to ensure agencies are adequately equipped to monitor and prevent potential threats. He also highlighted broader geopolitical implications. Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly acknowledged a relationship with Iran's leadership, adding a layer of complexity to global diplomatic dynamics. Turner suggested that shifts in Iran's leadership and regional power structures could affect other major theaters of conflict, including the ongoing war in Ukraine. The potential for regime change in Tehran was also discussed. Turner expressed hope that internal pressure within Iran could lead to political transformation, arguing that the Iranian people have long suffered under authoritarian rule. However, history demonstrates that regime collapse can produce unpredictable outcomes, including power vacuums, factional conflict, or even more hardline leadership. Allies in the Gulf region are now facing increased risk. Although many Iranian missiles have reportedly been intercepted, the threat of further strikes raises questions about expanded U.S. defensive deployments. Enhanced missile defense systems, intelligence sharing, and naval patrols may become necessary if the conflict persists. The administration maintains that the operation is limited and focused strictly on degrading military capabilities, not occupying territory or pursuing prolonged warfare. Nevertheless, critics argue that even limited strikes can spiral into extended conflict if retaliatory cycles intensify. Financial markets are reacting not only to immediate disruptions but also to uncertainty. Investors are weighing risks to global oil supply routes, including potential interference in the Strait of Hormuz, through which a substantial portion of the world's oil passes. Any sustained disruption could trigger long-term price spikes with worldwide economic consequences. Within Congress, divisions remain sharp. Some lawmakers support the president's authority to act swiftly against perceived threats. Others argue that Congress must formally authorize extended hostilities to uphold constitutional checks and balances. Public opinion may ultimately shape the trajectory of policy. Americans historically rally behind decisive action in moments of perceived threat, but can turn critical if casualties rise or objectives appear unclear. Transparency from the administration regarding goals, benchmarks, and exit strategies will likely influence public support. Turner underscored that the administration believes it is operating within a strategic window, neutralizing capabilities before they become irreversible threats. Whether that assessment proves accurate will depend on intelligence outcomes and the durability of the military impact. As diplomatic channels strain, international actors are recalibrating. European allies have signaled cautious backing of limiting Iran's military capabilities, though they also emphasize de-escalation. Regional partners are balancing support for U.S. operations with fears of being drawn deeper into confrontation. At home, security agencies remain on alert. Intelligence officials are monitoring online activity, foreign communications, and potential domestic radicalization. Federal authorities are coordinating with state and local law enforcement to heighten vigilance at public venues, energy facilities, and critical infrastructure sites. Ultimately, this conflict represents a convergence of military, economic, diplomatic, and domestic security challenges. The administration frames the operation as preventative and strategic. Critics demand clearer evidence of imminent threat and more defined boundaries. As Congress prepares for further briefings and possible votes, the nation watches closely. The coming days will determine whether the confrontation stabilizes into limited containment or escalates into a broader regional conflict with global ramifications. For now, the United States finds itself at a pivotal juncture, balancing the urgency of neutralizing perceived threats against the profound risks inherent in military escalation. The path forward will require not only force but also diplomacy, unity, and sustained vigilance.